Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. He spent 4 years on active duty as an Army officer. We're not going to hold that against him. He did maintain infantry platoon leader status. He is a Ranger School graduate, which we're going to get into the dick dragging that is. He's the author of 25 Hours a Day. He's the CEO of Bear Performance Nutrition. And he actually ran here from Austin. He burns through shoes faster than a stripper at the Spearmint Rhino. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Nick Bear.
Thank you for having me on. It's quite an introduction. I wish I would have ran here. I have to run actually after this podcast. So,
Before we get started, I'd like to take a quick second to talk about our awesome sponsors for today's podcast. We've got Origin Labs, which is the maker of Jocko's products. They also make jeans, which I actually happen to be wearing, and if I'm being honest, while I'm sitting here, it's actually massaging my ass. So if you buy a pair of Origin jeans, they have boots and gis as well, you'll actually have your ass massaged while you wear them. They're actually really comfortable. I wear them quite a bit. Their products, the Jocko Fuel, is kind of the main brand at this point, but they've got a whole line of other supplements. Go check them out. They've been steadfast sponsored supporters of this podcast for a while now, and we sure appreciate their support. Also, Bubs Naturals. The MCT oil powder and the collagen powder is something that I have in my coffee cup right now. It's something that I take every day. I absolutely notice a defining difference in taking them with a number of things: mental clarity, skin elasticity, digestion help. My joints feel much better. And what I love about this company also is that it's named after and started by Glenn Doherty. The name Bubs is Glenn's nickname. He was a good friend of mine that was one of the SEALs killed in Benghazi. And his lifelong childhood friend, Sean, and another guy started the company in Glenn's name. And they give 10% of all sales to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. So support them, check them out again with both Jocko's products and Origin Labs and the Bubs stuff. I take that stuff every day and really love to support a good group of veteran-owned guys. So at any rate, I've been looking at some of what you got going on social media-wise, and We'll get into training for Boston and what that entails and the why. But I was looking at people asking you questions about how fast you go through shoes, and I was just like, Jesus Christ! Like, the amount of mileage you're putting in getting ready for that is legit. No two ways about it.
it's probably a pair of shoes a month right now.
Yeah, that's nuts. And they're the Hoka brand, right? Which it's not like those are cheap or cheaply built either. What is your favorite cheat meal?
Favorite cheat meal? I don't know if you guys have them out here. We have Hop Dotty. Mm-mm. It's a burger spot, and it's right by our warehouse in Round Rock. It's a lot of them in Austin. Yeah, it's like these artisan burgers, and then these Parmesan truffle fries. Yeah. So me and my fiance started going there. We'd like this massive bowl of fries. Yeah. And we'd get our own. We'd share it, and slowly I was like, no, I'm getting my own. So every time we order, they say, you can share these fries. Yeah. No, we're not sharing these. Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you need to. Exactly.
So what's the best burger? Which burger do you get there?
This is one called Bacon Jam Double, and it's like it's a bacon jam. I don't know exactly what that means, or there's no bacon in it.
Oh, it's just like the jam is bacon flavored,
right? Yeah. But it literally it melts in my mouth.
Oh shit! That repeat the name of that.
The Bacon Jam Double.
I'm sorry, the name of the restaurant.
Hop Dotty.
Hop Dotty. That's weird. It must be an Austin thing. Austin is weird, right?
It's all over weird.
Yeah. What is the most miserable you've ever been?
Most miserable, I'd say my time at Ranger School.
Is there a specific time that kind of stands out?
Well, it's a 61-day course. I spent 140 plus days there.
You did it twice and a half?
Yeah, so essentially if you enter on this one date, late February, it's called the Best Ranger Competition Date. Yeah. If you recycle that phase at all, or during that course date, you have a 6-week holdover. So I went into the first phase, failed because of patrols, had a 6-week holdover where I was like cleaning up Fort Benning for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Pulling weeds down the pond, painting fence posts.
Sweeping the parking lot.
Yeah, just a bunch of bullshit. Went back in, passed, went to mountains, failed mountains right away. From patrols again, passed mountains, passed Florida, graduated. But I would say like that second time through mountains, I remember coming in from the field the one day, and I passed this mirror. And I catch myself in the mirror. And I had to like second glance because I didn't recognize myself. I dropped so much weight.
Yeah.
But I would say, I mean, there were some like standout stories from my time in Ranger School that are definitely like shit times.
Yeah, like the worst. I mean, from a standpoint of what you do now, are there any times where you've pushed yourself now as hard as you were pushed in Ranger School and make yourself as miserable as you were then?
I think I try to make myself as miserable as I was then. Like, I'm a person where Ranger School for me was a pivotal point in my life because up until then, I never really was challenged that way.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, like, there's, you can go, two people can go through the same experience. One person might pull a completely different perspective from it.
Yeah.
For me, going through Ranger School and spending that time there was this pivotal point where I learned this is what you have to do to go all in. So now I learned what it takes to succeed from that, and I apply that to the rest of my life, whether that's fitness, business. Like, I look forward to the shitty times.
Yeah. Yeah, the challenge, right? I think humans are meant to suffer in some ways for sure, or we thrive on it.
I think if you try to avoid it, you're cutting yourself short.
Oh, for sure. Well, what's the biggest failure you've had?
Biggest failure, I'd say, I don't want to call it a failure, but I think it was perspective when I first launched my company. So when I launched my company, I was studying nutrition in college. This is 2012. I was in the Army ROTC program, so I knew that a year later I was going active duty infantry. And I launched my business with no idea how hard it was going to be. So I remember launching it. I told my dad, hey, like, first year, I said, I'm going to make $1 million this first year. He just laughed at me. He said, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I launched it, made $20,000 that year after just shoving in people's face, massive, steep 50% off discounts. First 3 years, we did $20,000 in revenue.
Yeah.
To me, I was failing, and it wasn't until I realized what I have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I didn't realize at the time what it was going to take to make a business succeed.
Yeah.
And I learned through a lot of failures, a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. I think that's with most things in life, but to me the intelligence in the mistake or the learning experience from the failure is where most of life's best lessons are absolutely learned. The follow-up question is, what are you most proud of? Is it safe to say that pushing through and being successful, or is there something in your life that kind of takes the cake as being what you're most proud of?
I'd say at this point in my life, my business.
Yeah.
And I've had it for 8 years now, and seeing where it started. And at the time, in the beginning, there was never a point where I was like, I'm going to close this down. It's not working. I'm going to close it down. It was, I'm just going to keep doing this because I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah.
At the time, it wasn't making money in the beginning. I didn't care.
Yeah.
But seeing where it is today and where it first started, that's a constant, that's constantly in my head all day, every day.
Yeah. No, that's great shit. What's the scariest moment of your life?
Man, scariest moment. I'm gonna put it in business terms. I mean, I think being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about other people, almost like being in the military. And I remember I was in South Korea stationed, and I was getting ready to go to the field for 30 days. No access to my phone, no access to anything. And I tried using my credit card for the business to make a purchase for something. Wouldn't go through. At the time, I was using USAA for my business. I didn't know at the time, young entrepreneur, I didn't know you couldn't use a personal account for business.
Yeah.
So card wouldn't go through, and I just figured, hey, USAA just maybe viewed it as a risky transaction. So I called the bank, and they let me know that because I was using this personal account for business, they seized all my accounts. I didn't have access to these accounts for up to 60 days. was about to go under like investigation. So I couldn't touch any of my accounts. So here I am about to leave for 30 days, having this business that's growing, realizing, well, my hands are off. Like I have no way to control this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's at one point I remember like it felt like my life was literally crushing underneath me.
Yeah. And how old were you at that point?
It's 24.
24, yeah. I mean, for sure the element of, banking institutions having you by the balls that way, is it's legitimate and it sucks, frankly. There's been instances not quite like that, but similarly where I've, learned the hard way and been just naive going into things and thinking, I'll just do this. And then, you realize very quickly that there's a method to the madness, and there is a rhyme to the reason, if you will, and those are some shitty lessons at the time. But I'm assuming for you, just like with me, everyone that I look back on, I'm glad that I learned when I did, and they're valuable. They're ones that I think, to learn it on your own, they're far more valuable than somebody holding your hand and kind of guiding you through the process all the way. Having said that, I mean, obviously business mentors are great, but some of those lessons I think are best learned the hard way, honestly. Maybe I'm a dipshit, but what does your morning routine look like when you're in town?
I'm a massive person of routine. Like I like having my routine. So I'm up at like 4:45, 5 a.m.
What time do you go to bed?
Between 10 and 11 p.m.
Yeah.
So like 4:45, 5 a.m. I'm up. I'm in the kitchen making coffee, taking my morning supplements, and then I'm on the computer right away, just catching up with admin stuff. So I like to do like the first hour and a half of every morning, knocking out as much admin stuff as possible, so that when I get to the office, like I'll try to get to the office around 7 a.m., that I can focus on stuff with the team, like developing the team, working on longer range operations, if you will. So I can knock out all my like kind of BS admin stuff right away. Lately, my routine has been, I wake up, I go to the garage, I hop in the ice bath. I'm in the ice bath for 3 minutes. Now that's like 4 shots of espresso to the face, and I'm good to go for the day.
So are you prepping that the night before or what?
Ice bath?
Yeah.
No, so I made one in the garage. I bought a Frigidaire 14 cubic foot deep chest freezer. Yeah. Sealed all the inner linings, filled it with water, turned it on for a few days, and it gets down to like 34 degrees. And then I'll unplug it and let it sit there till it starts getting warm, plug it in, unplug it.
Oh, gotcha.
And kind of control it that way. And then I'll put a sub pump in there to remove water, filter it out. But like for my training right now, the ice bath has been game changing.
From an inflammation standpoint?
Right. So like more so it has improved my ability to recover and train faster like that next day. So I can tell a big difference.
But so you're doing this first thing in the morning, right?
First thing in the morning, unless I have like a 20 plus mile run that day, I'll do it a few hours after that run.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's my intuition, or the next question is, why not do it as kind of an ice bath recovery? Why first thing in the morning? So
multiple reasons. One, you don't want to do it right after the exercise because you want those muscles to adapt, and you don't want to stunt that hypertrophy. For me in the morning, it's one, like a discipline thing. It's a mental thing. Like the last thing I want to do when I wake up, especially in the colder months, is go into the garage, get naked, and get into a 32 degree, 35 degree body of water. So it's like overcoming that first thing that I don't want to do in the morning sets the precedence for the rest of my day. Yeah. So every other decision is almost just a little bit easier of things that I want to do. And then it kind of starts my day off. It wakes me up. I feel good. I feel fresh. My legs feel fresh. Like I can, like yesterday was my first day in for probably not being in for a week, just because we were traveling and whatnot. And I got in and I could instantly feel my legs like become fresher, feel better instantly.
Does your fiance ever get in there with you?
I got her to go in once for a video, but no, she won't do it.
Yeah. Of course, seeing you getting into cold water first thing in the morning, it looks like a button on a fur coat, I'm sure, too, right?
Absolutely.
It's not doing her any favors.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Did she fucking scream when she got in, or?
She was freaking out.
Yeah.
I convinced her eventually. I was like, just do it for a video. People will love it.
Yeah.
And Took her a few tries, but she finally did it.
Yeah, that's fucking great. All right, so in terms of your childhood, I went through the book and I, from reading that you're from Pennsylvania and grew up on a dairy farm, I'm curious. There seems to be a lot of, both influence and kind of inflection of how you grew up and where and what you did and how that's really built into a lot of the things that you kind of embody today. I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about your upbringing, similarly to how you did in the book, but just kind of a synopsis of where it was and what you took from that for the listener that hadn't checked out the book yet.
Yeah, so I grew up in central Pennsylvania, a small town called Palmyra, right outside of Hershey. And, at the time growing up, I didn't think I had a very dynamic or different upbringing. Mm-hmm. It's just, when you're in it, you really can't, especially young, you can't look back and have a perspective that's greater or larger. And my dad's side of the family were all farmers. Everyone's had a farm. My dad grew up on the dairy farm. And farmers it's a unique breed of person and family because those people, like, the farm is life. Yeah. Like there's no vacations, like especially dairy farming. You're milking in the morning, you're milking in the evening. There's no questions about it. Their life is determined by the weather, the seasons, the crop, and just seeing the discipline that, like, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather had growing up, and just it wasn't something they had to teach me or tell me. I just watched it just from experience. Right. So I had that side of the family, my dad's side, all farmers. My mom's side, a lot of the men were military. And this is the reason I decided to join the military is I watched, I was in high school and my cousin was 101st. And I saw him coming back and forth from deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. And I kind of just saw the way he changed the person, the way he developed, kind of the way he grew up. And as soon as I saw that, I wanted that experience. Yeah. To some extent. So I grew up with, like, these two very strongly different but same type of disciplined mindsets that I would say molded me to do the things that I wanted to do. But it was like this expectation, this standard that was already established as I was growing up that was, I'd say, higher than most people experience. Yeah. And there was this baseline that I was running off of.
So did you get out there, were you with your dad most days, every day? Did you help out from what age?
So I personally didn't grow up on the farm. My grandpa had the farm. My dad grew up on the farm. I would help out occasionally doing jobs. Like, my grandpa would give me a job baling hay, or he'd give me a job like filling chicken houses, stuff like that. So I would work random jobs on farms growing up, but I didn't grow up actually on the farm with him. Yeah. But I saw the way my grandfather, extended family, dad kind of did as I was growing up.
Yeah. In terms of on your mom's side with the military, what was their kind of response or reaction to you deciding to go in?
Super supportive. Obviously my mom, she was nervous when I wanted to go in. My uncle was a huge role model for me. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, infantry officer. So I saw, like, kind of the way his presence was always different to me. My grandfather was in the Air Force. My cousin was in the Army. So, like, the support was always there from the entire family. And I don't want to say it was expected, but it was almost like there wasn't supposed to be a generational gap. Yeah. And I felt almost an obligation to not let that gap happen.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a younger brother.
Did he serve or no?
No, he didn't go. He actually works with me now in the business.
Oh, okay. You ever bust his balls for not going in?
All the time.
All the time.
But it wasn't for him.
Yeah. So if you could kind of reduce the experience of seeing your dad and just that side of your family doing what they did on the farm, is there one thing that sticks out that from a life lesson standpoint that you learned from that?
Yes, I'd say, like, that entire side of the family, especially my dad. It's they were always warning me of if it's too good to be true, don't let it happen, or don't expect too much to happen. So to give an example, when I launched my company, when I told my dad I was starting my company, when I told him, hey, I'm making $1 million this year, He just laughed. He said it was that easy.
Yeah.
Everyone do it.
Yeah.
I think because like growing up, they saw to make X, you had to work.
Yeah.
Y. Like there were 100-hour weeks that they would work just to get a crop done.
Yeah.
So there was never, hey, I'm making $1 million. No, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So he was always warning me against kind of half measures.
Yeah. Did they farm other crops other than dairy cattle, or?
They had soybean, they had corn. So obviously, like weather for them. I remember my grandpa watching the Weather Channel all the time, and if we had bad weather for a season, he was the worst person to be around.
Yeah.
He still is, even though he doesn't have a farm.
Yeah. Just fucking ingrained.
Yeah.
Did you play any sports growing up?
Yeah. So I played baseball, played hockey, ran cross country.
No wrestling in Pennsylvania.
My dad was a big wrestler.
Yeah.
The thing with sports, though, for me is I was athletic, but I never stood out in sports. So my brother was 3 years younger than me. So by the time I was like a junior, he was like a freshman, I believe, and he was a stud athlete. He had opportunities for D1 baseball, D1 football. He was all state. So as soon as he started playing, I was like, no, I'm not playing anymore. So my senior year, I did nothing. I ran cross country.
Yeah.
But he was a stud.
Yeah. What did he go on to play any of those sports in college?
He played collegiate baseball.
Yeah.
Longwood University in Virginia.
Oh, okay. Anything past that, or did he just come to work for you after that?
Yeah, he just came to work for me. So he graduated college. He had a full-time job. He's working for 6 months. And when I was in Korea, the business was growing. So I hit him up and I said, hey, like, would you be interested in quitting your job, moving to Texas, sustaining the business, but I can't pay you, but you can live in my house. So like we couldn't take $1 from the business for 5 years after starting it.
Yeah.
So 2017 was the first $1 we took.
No shit.
Yeah.
What, I mean, in terms of the drive behind wanting to do that, I mean, we'll get into it a little further, but it makes me curious, I guess, why that, given your background and growing up and whatever, what was it about supplements, nutrition, performance, fitness, generally speaking, that really kind of drove you to start a business? Was it because you had a passion for it? Was it because from a market share standpoint that there was a lot of room to take some of that, or what was kind of the main factor with that?
So I was studying nutrition, and I was really interested in sports performance in regards to nutrition. Back then I was running because of my obligation with the military coming up, but I was just into putting on as much size and strength as possible, bodybuilding, powerlifting. And in college, we had no money left. So I'm in the dorms, and me and my buddies would chip in and buy these ingredients in bulk. We buy like citrulline malate, beta-alanine, creatine, caffeine. And we'd all chip in and we'd buy these ingredients in bulk and we'd mix them up in my dorm room. So we have this food scale.
Like fucking Breaking Bad fitness version.
The roommates, like the people on my floor probably assumed I was selling drugs, because you can imagine, you walk in, I have this food scale. I got white powder everywhere.
Yeah.
And people would come in my dorm and I'd give them a little baggie. And it'd be this white powder, which was my homemade pre-workout.
That's classic.
So I was doing this, and I just loved every part of like the supplement space, the fitness space, like especially sports performance with dietary supplements.
Yeah.
And it was between my junior and senior year of college that I had to go to Fort Lewis, Washington for a month of training. And when I got back, I knew I wanted to do something. And it was just like perfect timing where I got back, and at the time you could take out what was called the pre-commissioning loan for officers. Take up to $25,000 out with the USAA. You'd have to make your first payment for 18 months and super low interest. So all my friends are taking out this $20,000. They're buying engagement rings, new cars, going on vacations. I was like, shit, this is my way to start a business.
Yeah.
So I took out this $20,000. I found a manufacturer. I was hooked. I was like completely invested in every part of it at that point. Spent all the money on the supplements itself, like the inventory. So I had to do the website by myself, had to do the branding by myself. Looking back, it was just like, I sometimes don't know how we got from point A to point B now, but I just loved like creating, and I loved having this thing that was mine.
Yeah. So was college your first time like taking supplements? Did you take creatine and protein powders and shit like that growing up or in high school or anything? Or
I remember when when I was in high school, pre-workout was like brand new to the space. And I remember I would go to like the local vitamin shop and I would get like pre-workout. And my mom didn't want me taking it at the time, so I remember I would hide it. And I thought I was taking like drugs or something. So I would take like pre-workout in high school and stuff growing up. And this is when like the Jack 3D was on the market and it was like No Explode. And that's when I really started getting interested in it. And just like, cause I like things that create an experience, right? So like, that's why I like pre-workouts, because like there's this experience involved with like you take this supplement 20 to 30 minutes before, like you get tunnel vision focus, you can feel the caffeine kick in, the nootropics. Like I love those feelings. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what really got me into enjoying the supplement space.
Yeah. How did you eat growing up? Would you say, looking back on it, that you ate fairly clean, or what was your nutrition like as a kid, as an example?
So I don't talk about this much, but when I was 14, I had a pretty severe eating disorder. I don't know what kickstarted it. I don't know where it came from. I just remember when I was 14, I just wanted to lose weight. And it started where I would just like eliminate certain food items. And it got to the point over months where I was eating maybe like 300 calories a day.
Jesus.
I was just wasting away. And my body started shutting down. Like organs stopped like slowing down. I remember one day specifically, I was supposed to go to my baseball game. I was like 14, couldn't get out of bed because I had no energy. So I'm going to the hospital and like getting these tests and stuff done. And I remember like the one day my mom takes me into this appointment for this eating disorder clinic, and they confront me about it. They're like, I thought I was just going to another appointment. And they're like, hey, like we know you've been starving yourself. We know what's going on. And I don't know what it was, but something just clicked in my head that day. And I just said, all right, I'm getting better. I'm gonna start eating again. So I will always remember this day getting back from that appointment. Like, shit, I gotta start eating now. And I looked at a box of Pop-Tarts. And I turned around, it was like 400 calories for 2 Pop-Tarts. I was like, holy shit, this is more than I'm eating in a day. But I was like, I gotta do it.
Fucking Pop-Tarts.
So I started eating. I mean, like, and I don't mean to joke about it because people have like serious problems with unhealthy relations with food. And I did for a while, eating disorders, but there was something that clicked that day where I was like, I need to fucking get better.
Yeah. So the Pop-Tarts at first, what did you transfer into in terms of how you ate from there? Like, did you start to go more clean at least, or were you just a typical high school kid fucking garbage in?
No, so I would say like I focused on putting weight back on at first. It was just kind of eating whatever I could, but this transition, like this was another pivotal point in my life where I then found fitness and training and like learning how to eat right.
Yeah.
And from there it was like, okay, well, I found nutrition, which probably led to me wanting to get a degree in nutrition.
Yeah.
And learning more about it. But my last 2 years of college or high school were learning how to eat like the right foods, learning when to eat these foods, how to use these around workouts, incorporating like whey protein post-workout, stuff like that. But I was still very uneducated about what I was supposed to be doing, especially at the time, like 2009. The information that was available online is so different than what's available now.
Sure. I'm curious from the, I guess the eating disorder standpoint. What did you eat as a young kid?
Anything, just normal. Like I was never a picky eater. We'd have family dinners. I would eat whatever was being served.
Were you a cereal for breakfast kid?
I remember cereal or little toaster not Pop-Tarts, but that's toaster strudels.
Strudels, yeah.
I was a strudel guy.
Yeah. So mostly carbs.
Yeah, a lot of carbs.
Yeah. I'm curious. There's an element of malnutrition, I think, at a young age that probably contributes to unhealthy relationships with food as adults. I think so many kids, myself included, growing up on shitty processed carbohydrates as their primary fuel source as they're developing is just fucking terrible.
Oh yeah.
And I wish that I had known, or my parents had known then, what kind of I or we collectively know now, about eating way more nutrient dense shit growing up, and I can't even imagine the difference. But all right, so you kind of get off the the eating train in terms of it being a negative. You get weight back on. You decide at what point do you say I'm joining the fucking military? Was it after college or during college, before college? What was your thought process?
So this was in high school still. I was probably 17 years old, and I was gonna enlist. But I remember my mom wanted me to go to college, very much so. So I applied for the Army ROTC scholarship. Applied for the Army ROTC scholarship and the Marine Corps scholarship. Didn't get the Marine Corps one, so I went Army, and I was awarded that. So it was a 4-year scholarship. So they paid for my school, they paid for tuition, books, with the obligation of going into the military afterwards.
Yeah.
So going into freshman year of college, I went in Western Pennsylvania, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I already knew 4 years later I was going to be going into the Army.
In the Indiana University of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, no affiliation
Fucking weird.
No affiliation with Indiana University. It's in a town of Indiana, near Pittsburgh.
Fucking Pennsylvania, I'll tell you what. So going through college, you kind of discovered your passion for supplements. Was going into the military something that you were still excited about, or did it seem like it was a roadblock to what you ultimately wanted to do?
No, I mean, I quickly realized that the company wasn't where it was going to be, and I wanted to go in the military for one. I felt an obligation to serve at least 4 years, and I knew I would gain massive experience from my time in. Even though I was committed to growing this business, I looked at it as a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Even though in the beginning I said, well, I want to make $1 million year one. And when I learned that wasn't going to happen, I said, well, I'll take this. Like, this is a long-term approach. This is an investment. When the time is right, I'll double down on it. But right now my obligation is going to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Yeah. One thing I'm curious about, from an ROTC versus academy guy, right? Having been an ROTC guy, what is your take on the contrast between the two in terms of the product ultimately that is created by ROTC versus academy, and how that kind of shakes out? What's your thought process on that?
I mean, they're two completely different experiences, right?
Which, not to interrupt, but to me that's what seems odd, I think, to most people, myself included, is that to have, at the end of the day, you've got an officer with the same rank basically, and they're two almost polar opposite fucking processes.
Yeah, I've almost seen like it produces almost the same exact thing.
It's weird.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think it, but looking back and like talking to people that I know that went to the academy, I would have never wanted to go through the academy. I knew I wanted a regular college experience.
Mm-hmm.
And like from my friends that went to West Point, pretty much same product comes out. Going through an academy, you have a lot more networking and connections, and a lifetime of connections afterwards. But after your initial schooling for a year, you have the same experience.
Yeah. So it seems like, or it sounds like, your perspective of the academy network is like fucking Wharton or big business schools or Ivy League. Like it's more about who you went through with.
That, from my perspective and like my opinion, yeah, I think it's one of those things that my buddies that went through West Point and they got out of the military, they had this massive network of people in Fortune 500 companies that are also West Pointers that they could reach out to and grab from.
Fucking bastards. No, good on them. Good on you, ring knocker assholes. All right, so if you could walk through kind of your military career from as you graduate college and go into active duty.
Yeah, so 2013 and graduate from college, and
you make me feel old, by the way.
This was May 2013. By I think it was October, I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, for infantry officer basic course. Then I went directly into Ranger School, then Airborne School, then Bradley Leader course. So I was in Benning for a year, and then when I left Benning, I went to Fort Hood. And when I got to Fort Hood, my unit that I was assigned to was still in Germany for a rotation. So I had like 2 months of like troop schools there. I became the unit movement officer during this time, and then quickly after that, the unit got back from Germany. I got assigned to platoon, and I was a infantry platoon leader for 2 years, luckily. So, I mean, I had a solid group of guys, and all the things that I've done or I do in business, especially like team building stuff or building that team, that organization, I've learned directly from like my platoon sergeant, my NCOs, squad leaders, stuff, like the guys I served with.
Yeah.
So like, I loved being a platoon leader. Those 2 years were like my favorite 2 years ever. And then I spent a few months in the operations office, and then transitioned out in 2017.
The time in Korea, how long were you there for?
We were there for 9 months.
And what was the purpose? Was it like were you actually stationed there, or was it like a long exercise kind of thing?
So Second ID traditionally has always been the unit in South Korea. They started pulling some of the guys out of Second ID and then running rotations through South Korea. So we were like 13 miles from the DMZ, and we were there for a 9-month rotation to train with the South Korean Army.
Yeah. How was that?
Different.
Yeah.
Different.
How so?
I mean, just some of their. So, like South Korean Army, they have, if you're, I think it's above like 18 years old, you have to serve a mandatory 2 years in the military. So like some of their NCOs, some of their leaders have been in the military a very, very short amount of time, but their training was pretty subpar compared to some of the things that we were doing over there with them.
Yeah.
Some like their SOPs, some of their tactics were just out there.
Yeah. Did you have any run-ins with them as far as that goes? Like any cross trainings that just went fucking terribly and it was a total shit show?
No, I mean the biggest problem we had when we were there was the South Korean population not wanting us to be there.
Oh, really?
So like there'd be like riots and stuff going on to kind of.
It's that bad, huh?
It wasn't that bad, but that was like the only thing that we kind of out of our training facilities.
What do you know? What the reason why they don't want American forces there?
I mean, some of it was like our training sites would be around their farms and whatnot. If we were shooting the Bradleys at night, it'd be loud. It'd be a mess. We had to take our vehicles on their highways to get to certain training facilities.
Beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha. What was kind of your biggest takeaway from your time in Korea?
So Korea was it was a great experience as an officer, just being with my platoon. But those were the most productive 9 months of my life in terms of business, because when I got there, I thought I'd be working all the time, and I realized, well, we're just doing the same thing we're doing in the States in South Korea. We'd have PT in the morning, we'd work at 9 to 5. We weren't in training or going to the field. We were pretty much in garrison, but in South Korea. So I told myself, well, I'm not going to listen to, I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to watch any movies. I'm not going to watch any TV shows. I'm really not going to socialize outside of work. People would be playing video games. They'd be BSing after work, stuff like that. I said, this is my opportunity to grow my business while I'm over there. So I spent every waking moment that was outside of my job in the military to grow my brand.
Yeah.
So when we got there, we were making $2,000 a month in revenue. And my goal was, by the time I left Korea, I wanted to be making $10,000 a month in revenue. And just by going all in while being there, we started making $10,000 a month within 60 to 90 days of being there.
And so were you taking the same kind of business model of buying shit in bulk and making your own stuff, or was it advanced further?
So at that point, we had a manufacturer. So when I launched the business in 2012, I found a contract manufacturer, and they were making the formulas that we wanted based off flavor profiles. And then they would ship it to my parents' house in Pennsylvania. And my brother and dad would ship orders at night. It'd be like, an order a day maybe at that point. So they were helping me operate at that point. And through the process, we worked with different manufacturers. We now have 2 manufacturers, one in Texas, one in California, that we have awesome relationships with. But at the beginning, it was, I'm a new company. I'm trying to find someone who will just work with me to create these products.
That doesn't need a $400,000 minimum order.
Right. I mean, at the time, I think my minimums were like 500 bottles.
Yeah. Yeah. That's business is business. I mean, pretty much, manufacturing and products, it's kind of all the same no matter what industry you're in. But I would like to take a second to kind of go back to the Ranger School experience, just from a standpoint of, the guys that you went through with. I'm assuming most of them, or at least half of them, were going from there to an actual Ranger battalion. Did you? Was there a part of you that wanted to do that side and kind of go actually be a Ranger battalion guy, or was it more just you appreciated the experience for what it was, took what you could from it, and applied it to where you went back to?
Yeah. So when I got to my unit, I started my packet for Ranger Bat, because as an officer you can't go until after like 4 years. You have to do your platoon leader time in a line unit before you can go to battalion.
Really, I didn't know that.
So I started my packet, and what ended up happening is on Fort Hood, we were under 3 Corps. They had a long-range surveillance unit there, and they had a position for a platoon leader, an infantry platoon leader. And this was right before leaving for South Korea. So they opened up tryouts for the entire Fort Hood. They were just taking one person to be this platoon leader, to be in charge of a platoon of a LURS unit. So I went through the whole tryout process, which was for a few weeks, and I got the position for this LURS platoon leader position. So I assumed that 3 Corps would send me over to this LURS unit, and we were slotted for a deployment to Afghanistan. So I didn't think I was going to South Korea at first. I was just waiting for my brigade commander to sign my 4187. And so I start going over to this LURS unit and start cross-training and getting slotted for schools and whatnot. And I find out that my brigade commander wouldn't sign my 4187.
What, is that like a transfer form?
It's transfer form. So instead of going to this LURS unit and going on deployment, my brigade commander pulled me back and sent me to South Korea. So out of a little bit of like spite, I was a little pissed off about this. I ended up doing the paperwork to transition after my initial contract was up.
Yeah.
So I was at point 2 where if I would have stayed in, I would have got promoted to captain and went to be a company commander. So like, it was a point in my life where I had to decide, do I want to pursue my business and my company that's growing, or do I want to pursue this career in the military? Because as a lieutenant, I could kind of do both, but as a company commander, I couldn't be doing both. I couldn't be running this business on the side and being a company commander.
Yeah.
So I was at a point where I had to decide, which route do I want to do?
Had you been given the opportunity to go to a Ranger battalion, you would have taken it? Is that?
I would have, yes. Yeah.
Is there a part of you that regrets not going to do that?
Yeah, I think like every single day.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's certainly understandable. I mean, to me, like, you're obviously a very fit guy, and I've known quite a few Rangers over the years. It seems like a pretty good fit, but I was curious. I know that there's a lot of guys with the Ranger tab that don't end up at battalion that are go the officer route, but I was just curious.
Yeah, when I got out, that first like 6 months after being out, I strongly considered going back in.
Yeah.
Even though I had the business and the business was growing, and we had this really good thing, but I always, like, for the first 6 months, I debated whether I wanted to go back in or not to pursue things that I wasn't able to do while I was in.
Yeah.
I really wanted a deployment, and I really wanted to see where else I could take it, whether that Ranger Battalion or Special Operations.
Yeah. Any desire or thoughts of going back now at this point, or is it you're doing business and that's all you're focused on?
Yeah, I'm focused on business now. It's full time.
Yeah, no, I got it. All right, so you're a little bit chapped ass on not getting to go there. You decide to get out and focus on business full time. Talk about that transition, because I know as a fellow veteran / follow-on entrepreneur, for me, my experience, I mean, that's a dicey transition sometimes, a lot of kind of the fear of the unknown. I mean, one of the nice things about the military is that, while yes, it's dangerous, and the fear of the unknown of what you're going to end up doing, there's no fear of the unknown as it relates to where your paycheck is coming from, making sure that you have the health care that you need, that your family is squared away, all those types of things. Talk about your transition out and starting your business kind of from scratch and what that was like.
So timing was it was everything, right? So I started the business 2012. now after growing it for 5 years, since 2017, we were at a pretty good spot where I could transition out and I could live off the money that the business was making. So at the time, the business was supporting me, my brother, and one other employee that we had. And we were all living in this house that I had in Temple, Texas. It was like 1,100 square feet. The garage was full of supplements. The bedrooms were full of supplements. Everyone's sleeping on air mattresses. And we decided, all right, we need to sign a lease for a warehouse. So we signed this lease for this warehouse in Round Rock, Texas. And that was a big move because that was now this massive monthly expense, 6,000 square foot warehouse that we had to account for. And at the time when I signed that lease, I could not afford that. It was like this massive risk that I was taking. But I knew we needed the space. We had to step it up. And 2017, the best way to describe it was every day we woke up was like a kid on Christmas.
Yeah.
Like even though we weren't killing it, we thought we were killing it at the time. We thought we were slaying. But like every day was new, running into new problems, new growth. We were building this warehouse. I was still transitioning out of the military, so like I wasn't sleeping at all. We were creating content and growing these social media platforms and kind of showing people the behind the scenes of it. So when I finally did transition out of the military, which is a funny story, the day I transitioned down, I was like, all right, here's the time where I'm going all in. I'm dedicating all my time to this business. I had my DD-214 in hand. And literally as I'm getting in my car after getting this DD-214, my accountant calls me. He says, hey, this is what you owe for taxes this year. I was like, fuck, this is
wait, what?
This is what,
shit, I didn't know I made that much.
This is what being a business owner is all about. So
yeah.
But 2017 was just like this pivotal point in our business where we did our first 7 figures that year. And we were growing, scaling this brand, but every day was new. Every day was different.
So I guess I'm, hearing that, it's neat to, to hear that you had built it on active duty enough to where you could kind of slide right out, but you still had, some of those same challenges. One of the excerpts of the book that I wanted to read that I found both humorous and completely fitting was a day in the life of an entrepreneur early on. 6 a.m. on top of the world, $1 million, here I come. 9 a.m. Hold on, what bill is due? I'm not going to make it. At noon, sales are great today. Let's do this. 3 p.m. I feel like I'm losing everything. We're running out of money. 6 p.m. I've developed a solution to hit record-breaking sales this quarter. 9 p.m. I need serious help if I'm ever going to grow this thing. 11 p.m. I love this shit. To me, it's like that's a perfect representation of what it's like trying to grow a business. And I'm assuming even today, while it sounds like you have a whole hell of a lot more breathing room, there's still elements of that that take place. I know for me, kind of similarly, I've been doing my own thing now for 11 years. And that first several years was tough. It was putting shit on credit cards and trying to borrow money from friends. And, it was just, nobody really believed that you could do any of the things that you were trying to do. And a lot of the people that you for sure find out who your real friends and family and supporters are at those times. That's for goddamn sure. But, I know looking back on it from where I started to where I came, or from where I came to where I am now, rather, a lot of the things that I read about in your book are very similar, which I want to kind of dive into here a little bit. But does that mentality still persist for you today, or do you feel pretty comfortable?
I feel pretty comfortable. I feel more comfortable. As we grow, as we scale, there's always problems, right? But I remember like 2017 will be a year that I always remember because it was a complete roller coaster. And that was a year that we grew 750% in 1 year. So the issue we hit was inventory and cash flow. Because we were self-funded, what happened was we grew this audience, we grew this community, and we didn't have terms with our manufacturers at the time.
Yeah.
So when I put something into production, it was a 12-week lead time. I put 50% down, and then when it was done being produced and shipped, I paid the rest of it off. So I would pay all the inventory off before we got it.
Yeah.
So what happened is we would get it, we'd sell out of it in like a week, and then now I have 12 more weeks where I'm not selling anything.
Yeah.
So I remember looking at the bank account early days where, like, even though our sales were great, the manufacturers had all of our money tied up. And I'm just thinking, like, I remember laying in bed at night thinking, I don't know how we're doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah. Well, to me, one of the things you talk about is is going all in, right? It's one of the chapters of your book that, to me, like, that mentality is really what separates people that make it and people that don't. You know, everybody's going to run into problems. Everybody's going to be discouraged, but it's the people that just continue to put one foot in front of the other and figure out a way around it. You know, it's that lack of safety net. What advice would you give somebody, you know, not necessarily in your industry or space, but just looking to do the same things? If you can kind of reduce it, which you do to a certain extent in your book, but even, you know, as technology advances with specifically social media and the internet, you know, it makes a book that's even a year old almost archaic in some ways. What would you tell somebody in terms of here are the kind of handful of keys to success for making a business successful in today's day and age?
I'd say for one, like you have to be truly passionate about what you're doing. I think people DM me sometimes and they say, hey Nick, I see what you've built. I want to create a business. What business should I create?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like who am I to tell you what
baby
business
wipes?
to create?
Fuck off.
Like, so you have to be truly passionate about what you're doing, or you're not gonna want to go all in. You're not gonna want to do it. It's like being truly passionate about what that is. It's not I want to be an entrepreneur. What is it that I want to do? I think you're gonna find what you want to do first, and then decide let's monetize this.
Yeah.
2 is having that vision. Like in the beginning, I didn't have the vision at all. I knew I wanted to start this business, but if someone were to ask me like, who's your audience? Well, everyone's my audience. And like if the business owner doesn't understand what the vision is, then the team doesn't understand what the vision is, and then the customers don't know. So I think having like a very strong vision and story behind everything you do connects with people. It makes it's a selling point.
Yeah.
And then I think one of my biggest issues with my story that I talk about or the book is people always want the shortcut. Like you can tell people an entire story. You can give people like, these are the things you have to do, but they still want like that pill they can take that's, well, how do I get from point A to point B and skip everything in the middle?
Yeah.
Like the time. And I've done some speaking engagement recently and talking to people about starting businesses. And a lot of people want to quit their 9-to-5 and go directly into being a business owner where they have like a family to support, they have kids to support. And it's like there's that gap where you think it's going to be an inch big is probably a mile big of the things that you have to learn and accomplish in between.
Well, and to me, there's so many things that pop up that you weren't expecting. You know, it's really no different than like a concept of operations in the military. Is that, you know, you've got all these contingency plans, but rest the fuck assured something's going to come up that you weren't planning for. You know, and to me, business is so much that way where, you know, to me, it kind of boils down to, at least from my perspective, is the parallels between society and business owners is very apt in that there's really 2 types of people. There are victims and there are not victims, you know, and the people that choose to be a victim, and I do think it's a choice, and that, you know, if you focus on the bad shit that happened to you or the problem that you just ran into and you're just feeling sorry for yourself and spending the energy that you could utilize actually, you know, figuring out a solution to that problem, you're using that energy to bitch about it, to complain to your friends or your family or your spouse or whatever, and to think of reasons why that's going to keep you from doing what you want to do. You're never going to fucking make it. And from my experience, it seems like, unfortunately, most people fall into that fucking category where, you know, everything is woe is me and this happened to me and well, I can't because of this. And it's like, motherfucker, you know, you have 1 or 2 options. You can bitch about it or you can figure out a way around it, you know. And to me, like, if I had to reduce it to one fucking thing, it's that. But you know, I'm curious, do the people that solicit advice from you to this point, and similarly to me, like, I loved reading the Googling quote about wasting your time, because similarly, like 90% of the questions I get asked, I'm like, are you a subscriber to the online training? No. Well, fuck off and subscribe first, and then you can ask the question, you know. But or if it's something they could have found in Google in 2 seconds, do that. But has anybody that solicited advice from you that you've actually taken the time to help out, has it actually helped anybody? Like, has anybody followed up and said, you know, the advice that you gave, I started my own business and here I am with it?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the things that always reinforces like why I keep doing this stuff is we'll hold live events. For clear example, last month in February, we held an event called the Run One More Challenge, where we all did the Austin Marathon and we invited people to join us. And we had the biggest team at the Austin Marathon. And we held an event at our warehouse the day before. And when you can connect with those people in person, saying like, hey, I took your advice, I read your book, I watched your YouTube videos, and it's done this for my life. I went from here to there. That constantly reinforces, okay, things we're doing, they're valuable and they're changing lives. So this is why we need to keep doing this and more of this. Yeah. So getting that like in person, especially feedback it's amazing.
So quite a few then.
There's quite a few.
Yeah. What is your take, I guess, now then on where you're at? Obviously, the business from a supplement standpoint is doing well. Not that it's running itself, but has business mentorship or creating a side of business where you advise people. Is that something that's crossed your mind?
It is, but right now I don't have the time to dedicate to it. Yeah. So I've considered taking on some clients, especially in the supplement space. Yeah.
Even though it's kind of direct competition?
Well, it would have to be a completely different niche. Yeah. So like it would have to be like, like maybe a woman's brand or like a vegan brand or something. Nothing that would directly compete with me. Yeah. But I would consult with other businesses. Just like right now, I don't have the time allocated for it. Yeah. And for what my time would be worth, it'd have to be, that'd be worth it to me. Yeah. But right now, I don't want to, because we're still scaling a lot. We're growing a lot. I don't want to take time away from my team in the business to outsource for my personal gain.
Yeah. Is the end goal, if you care to share it, to have a GNC or whoever fucking buy you out? Is that kind of your goal? Or
I think it's hard to say right now. In the beginning when I first started, it was like, I want to grow this company, scale it, and sell it. But I'm still invested into the people. It's not just the brand. It's like the people involved in it, like our personal team, the customers. That at this point I can't imagine letting it go. At some point that will change based off of where my life changes. Yeah. But I'm so in it right now that it's hard to say where that's going to be or when that's going to be.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. If you're short on time, one question I guess I have is, like training for a fucking marathon is no joke. I mean, to do it right. That's got to take up a significant amount of your time. I am curious as to the why. I mean, is it just a straight, I want to challenge myself and this is a goal I've set and I'm going to fucking see my way through it? Or because to me, like that's one of the things that you say in your book that I couldn't agree more with is time being your most valuable commodity. I say this all the time. Like people say time is money. Fuck no, it isn't. Time is way more valuable than money because you can't make any more of it. You can't give it away. You can't save any of it. You can't multiply it. So to me, spending that amount of time doing something, is there more to it than just the challenge and the goal, or how do you kind of leverage that?
No, absolutely. I mean, I did an Ironman in November, and that amount of training was twice as much as marathon prep is. But the way I do all my business stuff is, I mean, it's partly it's to challenge myself, to personally grow, but it's also a strategic business move because all these things are vertically aligned. So like when I say vertical alignment, like we have our YouTube content, we have our other social media platform content, we have the supplements, we have the training platform. So like if I'm training and documenting my process for an Ironman, it's you're pulling multiple things from me. You have education from like a training and nutrition standpoint. We have motivational and inspirational content from it. And then we're growing the community online, which then funnels back into the companies. Yeah. So all these things are vertically aligned. So yeah, like a lot of it is I want to push myself further and further and further. But then it's vertically aligned and it grows the business. And I see the impact that it has on our community. Yeah. We're now like people that never ever thought about running are signing up for half marathons and full marathons.
Yeah, that's cool. What I guess with that is the brand and the products that you have in this documentation process, are those an integral part where you say, hey, I did this training and I take these supplements? Like, do you kind of outline that in the weeds? Is the stuff that you take and what it does for you in training for this as part of the plug?
Yeah, I mean, I think we plug it very organic and naturally. And we work the same way with our athletes and ambassadors that we sign on, where It's never like, hey, you need to push this product X amount of times a month. So like we use our social media platforms, all of our media, to be as transparent and behind the scenes as possible. So like, for example, maybe a video is us in the morning, I'm training and using some of the supplements that we sell. But then in the afternoon, we're driving up to Allen, Texas, and we're at the manufacturing facility, and we're showing all the testing procedures that go on behind the scenes, how we run our products, how we manufacture our products. And then like, you know, we just got a third-party certification that we're BSCG, banned substance free certified. So like we use social media to take everyone that's following us behind the scenes of what it takes to build a business, to train in fitness and nutrition, and then the behind the scenes of a supplement company.
Yeah. So speaking of supplements, how many different products do you guys have right now?
So we've like 10 right now. We're working on a carbohydrate electrolyte formula right now, which will probably launch in like 5 weeks.
Like as a recovery drink?
Well, it's meant to be used. So a lot of the products we produce are because we actually want to make it ourselves or use it ourselves. So when I was training for Ironman, I needed a carb and electrolyte powder for on the bike because I had to consume like 60 grams of carbs and 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour. And to do that, you need some sort of supplement.
Yeah.
So ones I was using were killing my stomach. So I said, hey, we can do better than this. So then we put together a formula with cluster dextrin, which is our carb source, and then a full electrolyte panel supplying 350 milligrams of sodium. So like it can be used pre-run, it can be used on a bike during training, depending on how long your session is. So like all the supplements we use or have produced came about because it's like, hey, we need a supplement for X.
Yeah. Have you personally messed around with either keto or carnivore or paleo and any of the lower carb types of stuff?
No. So I follow a moderate carb diet. It's not low by any means. But I would say 40% carbs, 25 protein, 35% fat. I like higher fat diets.
Yeah. I'm curious in the space, whether it's influencers, whatever, do you know of anybody that has tried, heavy keto or carnivore or, almost no carb type of diets for any of the runners and the Ironmans, any of your athletes that you work with?
I know the keto space is becoming more popular in endurance athletes.
Yeah.
Because the intent behind it, and I didn't personally try it myself.
The kerosene method.
Yeah, the intent behind it is your body becomes more optimized to use fat as a fuel source rather than carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people in the endurance space, especially Ironman.
Well, yeah, I mean I guess that's what I mean by the kerosene is that gas or the more flammable it is, it's like carbohydrates, whereas kerosene or even animal fat burns low and slow. To me, like the logic and reason behind it makes sense, but there has to be an element of, just like with everybody, the kind of the epigenetics component of it combined with straight genetics, is that there's an element of different strokes for different folks. You've never really personally messed with that at all, or?
No, I mean I'm a massive advocate of everyone requires different fuel sources.
Yeah.
Where one person might be optimized on a high fat, low carb diet.
Yeah.
The shoe doesn't fit the same for everyone.
Sure. In terms of your product specifically, I guess, can you talk about a couple of the most popular ones? Or, I mean, you don't have to necessarily go through all 10 of them, but just talk about a few of them that you've had a lot of success with and what they are.
Yeah, so our best selling product by far, we sell probably 6,000 to 7,000 bottles of it a month, is our Strong Greens Superfood Green Supplement. So we created this a few years ago with the intent of it, because at the time we were strictly like selling like the bodybuilding powerlifting community, and we wanted to create a green supplement as almost like an add-on that we were like, some of these people might take it, like we want to personally use it, so we're going to produce it. And that quickly turned into our best-selling product.
Yeah.
For like increased natural energy, improved digestion, boosted immune, just overall better feeling. So like our Healthline series now dominates the line pretty much. We have a strong greens, strong reds, strong multivitamins, strong joints. After that, our pre-workout flight is our number 2. And then our whey protein, just because our flavors for our protein our next level.
Goddamn cotton candy or what?
We got a blueberry muffin. We got a chocolate peanut butter, fruity cereal.
Did you bring any of that shit with you?
I'll send you some.
All right.
You'll love it.
I'm curious, I guess, just because I don't know shit about the manufacturing process as it relates to supplements, but I can only assume that trying to get into a space where, at least from my knowledge base, which admittedly is limited, but it seems like there's a handful of big manufacturers that make most of everything, like there is in most industries. How did you go about kind of making your own and being able to get people to make things for you that they're not already making, and how you're testing them and ensuring that they work properly and it's not placebo and all that? Because I know for me, and I think a lot of people, you walk into a GNC, for example, and there's just so much shit in there. Like, one, you don't know what to choose from, but two, a lot of it is fucking garbage. So in a space where I think there's some consumer leeriness, as it relates to the efficacy of the product, those two things, like how have you managed to grow your own brand and own formulas and compete with these bigger companies?
Yes, I mean, one of the reasons we stick with direct consumer and don't go a lot of retail stuff is because our formulas are more expensive than a lot of competitors. So in order for us to get into, like, say GNC or Vitamin Shop or retail, our profit margins would be a lot lower because of the price point they want to buy and sell at. So that's why we continuously stayed just direct to consumer. But when I first started, like, to find a manufacturer, I had to find someone that had low minimums, had no terms, and was willing to take me on. And as we slowly started to grow, it was now manufacturers are reaching out to me, trying to get my business. So there's probably every day that a new manufacturer reaches out,
yeah,
and is trying to get our business because our volume has increased.
Yeah.
So we first got connected with one of the companies I still work with. When I was in South Korea, they reached out, and we started the conversation. And they're actually based out of Allen, Texas. Right outside of Dallas, and they do all of our performance line, and then all of our health line series gets made in California, but they reach out to us as well. So as you grow, you get these better and bigger manufacturers to establish relationships with you. Now, the manufacturing process, the supplement industry gets a bad rep because there are bad manufacturers or bad companies, but like, it is actually a very heavily tested process. So, like, for example, when our manufacturer sources ingredients, they'll bring these raw ingredients in, and they'll quarantine those ingredients until those ingredients are tested for purity and accuracy. They'll take a fingerprint of that ingredient. So if I get a batch of 20 kilograms of caffeine in, we're going to test that caffeine to make sure it's caffeine at the purity that we think it is,
yeah,
before we actually use it.
Are any of the ingredients with the coronavirus fucking outrage here lately, or any of the ingredients of your products coming from China?
There's a lot of our manufacturing isn't done in China, but there are single source ingredients that are sourced from overseas.
Yeah.
So the coronavirus hasn't hit our distribution model yet, or manufacturing timelines yet.
Yeah.
But it possibly could in the future.
Yeah.
Because they'll limit the imports.
One of the things that I've seen, in particular, Tucker Carlson's done a couple of, pretty astute opening monologues on his show here recently about the dependence on China and trying to bring manufacturing, at least the necessities, in cases like this, where if all of a sudden you not on your own accord become an isolationist country, like are you gonna be choked off, and do they have you by the balls the way China basically does now? Do you think it's even possible for companies such as yours, or really any in the space, to be able to get rid of China completely in any reasonable amount of time, or is that unrealistic?
I think that's, depending on the ingredient, it's unrealistic, because even like the big ingredient suppliers that are based in the U.S., they still get a lot of their stuff manufactured overseas. So even like they might have this ingredient that's trademarked, that's run through clinical studies, and their headquarters is in the States, but the single ingredient source is still being made overseas and brought into the U.S.
Does that worry you at all?
For distribution models?
Yeah.
with the whole coronavirus thing?
Yeah, and just generally speaking, I mean, because the state-run news outlet in China actually said that, basically keep fucking around and we're just going to not import all of these. They were talking specifically to antibiotics and surgical equipment and stuff, many of which are only made there. Like the only place that the United States gets like 95% of the fucking active ingredients in most of our prescription medications come from China. Whereas if they're like, fuck you guys, we're not sending you anymore, like a fuck ton of people would be screwed. Like millions of people would probably die here if they did that. And to me, like from a national security standpoint, that's a huge deal. But even again, from a business standpoint, like if you wake up tomorrow and China says, we're not exporting anything to America anymore, does that fucking put you out of business?
It would scare me. I mean, we'd probably have to possibly reformulate some products or find another supplier.
Yeah.
But then that also affects your costs.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's like, I would love to be able to control and have my own manufacturing, own ingredient supplying of everything.
Yeah.
But it's not possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of fucking investment.
Right. So, I mean, that's why we contract manufacture,
Yeah.
two contract manufacturers. And then, we go to the manufacturing facilities a lot because we want to show the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And something we recently did is we put all of our products through the BSCG, banned substance free certification. So now, if you're an NCAA athlete, professional athlete, CrossFit, UFC, military, you know that you can take these products and they're banned substance free.
Yeah, that's cool. Real quick, just off the top of my head, what is your thought on like performance enhancing drugs across the board? I mean, not just specific to say anabolics, but like SARMs and peptides and shit like that. What is your personal take on all of that stuff?
I think a lot of it's dangerous. I think the only like good way, if you're going to be using some sort of PEDs, whether that's for hormone replacement therapy or whatnot, is through a doctor. Just because, like, man, like you don't know a lot of times where that's being sourced from.
China.
Yeah, but like for example, our manufacturer won't make SARMs.
Yeah,
they can't because they're NSF certified. So like if you're using a manufacturer that is producing and making these kind of things, well, what other steps are they skipping out on?
Yeah,
and what is the source of that? And who knows what it's going to do to you?
Well, and I guess there's quite a bit more research on anabolics than there is on SARMs. I mean, there's decades of use, and it seems pretty largely understood what the risks are and what the benefits are, et cetera, and what outweighs what. I am curious. I mean, I don't know a ton about SARMs, but they seem pretty popular, and I know a handful of guys that have tried them. I have never messed with them. I similarly, like, to me, there's just not enough literature or experience with them for me to even risk it. But what's your take on them specifically, I guess?
I think it's a cheap alternative that promises too much. Something I personally wouldn't trust and would never recommend anyone take. I think like there's a time and place for certain things. Like I think the whole anabolic space gets a lot of bad rep because you look at a bodybuilder whose arms are exploding and you say, well, that's what steroids do. But then you look at someone who's on hormone replacement therapy and it's completely changed their life because it's monitored and prescribed. Well, that's changed their life because they feel a million times better.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't just take like this cup and say this cup applies to everyone the same way. It's how you use that cup.
Yeah, and to me, I think too, there's a heavy distinction between hormone replacement therapy and anabolic steroid use. I mean, to me, at least the way I kind of vision it or imagine it rather is that testosterone and estrogen, HGH, things that are naturally made in the body that you're supplementing because they're low, to me, like, that makes sense.
Right.
Now, when it comes to, all of the other anabolics, the Winstrals, the Anivars, I can't even think of them. There's a ton of them out there that are not. I mean, like, they're made for fucking beefing up cattle before they're slaughtered and like all these other things that they're not even for humans that people are taking. Like, to me, that seems like a pretty easy line to draw in terms of, what's probably all right and manageable versus a fucking bad idea. Would you agree with that, or do you see it different?
No, I would agree. I think that there's an easy line to be drawn between those.
Yeah.
But I think like anything else, if you abuse it and don't understand how to use it properly, it's going to end up messy.
Yeah. For the average Joe listener out there that's still listening, the 9 people that are still listening to this podcast, what would if they came to you and said, hey, I'm in fucking terrible shape, I don't even know where to start, what do I do?
I would probably start with, and here's where the problem, I think a lot of times what does happen with most people is someone's looking for help to get in shape, and the first thing they want to do is they say, where's my meal plan? What meal plan should I hop on, and how should I train? And most people will want to completely flip over the way they're currently eating. Say you're going to eat this at 7 a.m., this at 9 a.m., this at 12, this at 2. And you take someone who's being untrained with poor nutrition and putting them on the most strict program ever. They will say, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think you identify, it's case-by-case basis, but you identify what someone's currently doing and making small modifications to their diet, and then refining that, and just teaching them how to properly eat and train, and build up a small program with some strength training, some hypertrophy, some cardio. But I think you start small, you start making small modifications, and you turn it into these lifestyle habits rather than completely flipping over their life and overwhelming the person.
Is that something that you guys do also, like bringing clients on for training, or is it?
It's something we're launching this summer. So we're launching a subscription-based fitness platform. Yeah. My buddy who's in 10th group is coming down to run that. And that will be the opportunity for people to get, it's a subscription-based training, but they can also reach out to us and we can answer any of their questions. Yeah. Because we want to be able to provide the product, the training, the nutrition, the motivation, like all of it in-house.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And that's this summer you're launching that?
This summer, yeah.
That's good shit. Do you have any perspective on, in terms of the outside of the supplement space, in terms of what you eat? How particular are you as it relates to organic, grass-fed? Where you're sourcing your food from? How big of a role does that play?
I'm always quality over quantity, because it used to be where, in college I would track everything. I would have to hit my calories and my macros to a T every time. And it's when flexible dieting, the whole if it fits your macros was very popular. So just eat whatever you want as long as it fits in. Well, I think society has a massive impact on this, but also just learning through the process, where now I'd rather choose these quality food sources and then think about quantity afterwards. So I'm massive on grass-fed beef, organic eggs, as high quality as possible. And that's why I like the Austin area, is because there's a lot of farm to table restaurants. Yeah. So you can go to a restaurant and like where they'll tell you what farm it's been sourced from. Yeah. And you're getting quality stuff, especially meats.
Sure. Do you do much with organ meats and stuff like that?
I haven't yet, no.
Yeah. What about in terms of supplements or any thought processes on bringing that into your line, like food supplement stuff like that? Like, there's that Ancestral Supplements place that has pretty much every fucking organ you can imagine. But something like that, is that something you guys have considered?
Not at the current spot we're in. It wouldn't be like one brand, but maybe as the brand evolves and develops, like who knows where it's going to go. Like when I first started, it was just pre-workouts, amino acids. Now we're getting more into the health line, because you see the industry evolve. Your company has to evolve as well. Yeah. So I think 10 years ago, people didn't take their health as serious as they are now. Mm-hmm. Maybe they wanted to train and they wanted to eat better, but now everyone's looking, more people than none now are looking grass-fed meats than they ever were before. I think it's just the trends that society's moving in. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's one of those things that just makes fucking sense. Like if the animals you're eating, no different than us, if you eat shit, you're going to be unhealthy. Well, if the animals that you're eating are eating shit, then you're eating unhealthy animals. That in turn is going to make you unhealthy. Like that doesn't seem like that big of a stretch yet. It seems like it still is largely lost on a lot of the population. I mean, it's for sure gaining momentum, and I think people are becoming more and more aware of how important that is. But sometimes I'm baffled at the disconnect that people have between the types of food that they eat and the impact that it has on their overall health. So we talked a little bit about, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm in fucking terrible shape, what do I do? You covered the eating portion. In terms of the physical fitness aspect, do you kind of view that the same way, where it's, don't throw them into a CrossFit gym and fucking, overwhelm them? Do you start out small? And if so, what does that look like on the fitness side?
I think a lot of it's finding out, well, how do you enjoy training? Like, what is it you like? If someone doesn't like running at all, I'm not going to go make them run, 5 miles. So it's finding like what it is about fitness or just moving in general, that they like, and then start implementing more of that and experiment with other types of training and fitness to see what they might like.
Yeah.
But I think it's building a plan off of what you're doing. Because I think a lot of people, when you talk cardio, and a lot of people think cardio, they're hopping on a treadmill, they're hopping on a Stairmaster for 45 minutes in a sweatshirt and just sweating it out. Well, no, that can be like a low zone 2 hike. That could be like swimming. That can be all these different things. But I think sometimes in regards to fitness, people have this perception of what it is that fitness is, but you can diversify that so much.
Yeah. In terms of, I guess the way that you go about your own life and following that, what does that look like? So if somebody said, hey, tell me what your schedule looks like in terms of training and what you eat and how you're working out. I know like right now it's pretty heavy with Boston, or with trying to qualify for Boston, but what does your workout regimen typically look like, if there even is one?
Yes, I mean,
and eating for that matter.
So like nutrition wise, I don't track anything. Nothing's tracked, but I focus on like a few things. Like in the morning, I don't do heavy carbs. Morning is always just high protein and something very nutrient dense. Like I'll do my greens, reds, multivitamin supplements.
What is in the reds, real quick?
It's like berry extracts.
Okay.
There's this ingredient called Spectra, which is really good for blood flow, digestive enzymes. So yeah, if people aren't taking like those supplements, I always recommend like some sort of nutrient dense something, whether that's berries, nuts. Do like a juice. Like if you're traveling, get like a freshly squeezed juice. It's like protein and nutrients in the morning is what I like. And then my lunch is typically prepped because it's just convenient for me, which is like some sort of carb source, like rice, potatoes, beef, chicken. And then I'll do like a protein shake with some good carbs before my workout, being maybe like oats, fruit, some sort of grain. And then like post workout is like my biggest meal of the day. So I hold a lot of my calories for at night, but it's whatever me and my fiance are making. So like we'll do a lot of red meats on the Traeger. We'll do a lot of sweet potatoes, a lot of like kale salads. We always try to focus on like very nutrient dense food items.
Does she eat similarly to you?
Pretty spot on, yeah. But like the focus is always, I'm always thinking like I look at food as like nutrients, right? So I'm looking how much protein is in this meal, how many fats are in this meal, and how many like nutrients, vitamins, minerals am I getting from this? And you start doing this, you start making these lifestyle changes. I think the average person that's eating like crap, they can eat like crap all the time. They feel the same. They always feel like crap. They don't know it. They're not aware of what good feeling like feels like. You start eating better and you become very aware with your body. It's like you eat something like crappy, you feel like shit. But like if I'm eating like a very high quality steak at night with some good potatoes, I'm feeling really like satisfied, really good. Yeah. So like I'm always focused on quality of those food sources because I know what good feels like now.
Yeah. How, I'm assuming you're adjusting that also to your output workout wise, because one of the things I'm curious of, I mean, from a training standpoint, training for a marathon is very different than, say, going to a CrossFit gym or, focusing on lifting and whether it's powerlifting or just regular bodybuilding or whatever. How much has crossed over in terms of your nutrition changing, whether it's more carbs or whatever, is being influenced by changing and doing so much more running now?
Yeah, so my diet really changes on a daily basis depending on what the training session is that day. So if I have a 20-mile run for the day, my diet is going to be very different as opposed to what it would be if I was not running at all and I was just lifting. So like days where I'm high calorie expenditure, high energy expenditure, my carbs are going up. My pre-workout meals are changing a little bit. I'll try to get less fat, more carbs in the morning, and then get more fat in at night. But it's really like I'll know what I'm training that day, and I'll adjust my diet to meet the energy needs for that workout.
Okay.
Or the recovery.
Yeah, I gotcha. And so on the working out, I mean, how much are you still doing much lifting, or is it mostly just running? Or
it's mostly running right now. I'm doing a lot of body weight stuff right now. Reason being is, I'm 195 pounds, and I'm trying to run a sub 3 hour marathon. And my goal now is I have to lose weight. I have to lose some weight, and to lose some more weight, I mean, I built my size over 10 years.
Yeah.
So like last year, this time I was 35 pounds heavier, and I naturally hold a lot of mass up top. So running, as I get deeper into these higher mileage runs, that mass up top starts to really affect me.
Sure.
So now I'm trying to reduce some of this mass. So I'm not really weight training right now, but it's a lot of calisthenics, push-ups, pull-ups, core training, hanging leg raises, GHT sit-ups. And I'm doing that probably 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. But the focus is 100% running, because the goal was to qualify for Boston. After I qualify for Boston, I'll have a more balanced style of training.
Yeah.
But the goal right now specifically is I have to run sub 3 hours.
Yeah. How do you feel being 35 pounds lighter?
Oh, I feel great.
Like, are you at a weight where you're like, fuck, I don't know if I want to go back to weighing?
I don't think I don't want to go up to 225 ever again. I might get up, 205, have more balanced style. Mm-hmm. But like my natural energy, my joints, my body, like it feels better all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel healthier. I look healthier, as opposed to when I was trying to get as big, as strong as possible. Because in 2017, I hit a 700 pound deadlift.
Wow.
And I was 225, 230 pounds in, but my diet like reflected that. I was eating whatever calories I could get in.
Yeah. Were you doing any type of, I hate to use the word cardio, but any type of, high heart rate type of training at all?
No, I mean, when I got out of the military, I said I would never run again. So I was like, all right, I was like, it's time to get big.
Yeah.
So the goal was to get as big, as strong as possible. So it was no cardio. It was eating as much as possible to fuel that size and strength.
Yeah.
And I got stronger.
What was your body fat percentage at then when you were at your heaviest?
Man, maybe 18.
And what is it now? Do you keep track?
It's probably 9 to 10.
Yeah. I mean, so it seems like, as with everything, balance is kind of the key, but it sounds like you're in a better spot now, having spent as much time as you have running. I don't typically run. I do a lot of walking. I do a lot of, hiking or bike riding or rowing, or, I mean, pretty much everything except fucking running. I hate running. But
I think with any kind of cardio, I think, and this is the biggest mistake I made in the beginning, is when most people think of a run, they think, okay, how much time do I have to run, or how far do I have to go? And if you tell someone to go run 5 miles, they're going to run that 5 miles as hard as possible, and it's going to suck. But building an aerobic base like rowing or hiking or walking, that's low zone 2 heart rate stuff, that's how you build like a really solid foundation of an aerobic base. And in the beginning, that's what I skipped down on.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people skip out on that, and they try to get faster, but they can't because they don't have that base built.
Yeah. Is that something that that you mentioned heart rate training? Is that something that you do now? Do you keep track of your heart rate and during your runs? And is that something that fuels or drives your training process?
It was during Ironman. A lot of my training now, because we have a certain time to run it in, a lot of it's based off pace. So I'm trying to hold certain paces, unless it's just a go do an aerobic base building run.
Yeah.
So like 80% of my runs are like aerobic base building, where it's a low, pretty easy zone 2 low heart rate run, just to build that foundation. And you build on that foundation with some higher heart rate interval training. But that was one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started endurance training. Is I didn't understand heart rate training and how important it can be, or how massive an impact it can make on your success.
Yeah. How long have you been training more on the aerobic side?
Last May is when I started training for the Ironman.
And when did you run that?
November. So I trained for like 6 months.
Which one did you do?
Panama City, Florida. So my goal was to finish between 12 and 13 hours. I did 11:28.
Oh, wow.
So I was happy with my time, especially maybe first triathlon.
Yeah.
I remember I walked into the bike shop locally. I'm looking at the bikes on the wall, and this guy walks up, and I was big. I was big then. And he goes, "Can I help you?" I was like, "I'm looking for a bike. I just signed up for a triathlon." Oh, like what kind of triathlon? I said, "Signed up for an Ironman." He said, "You haven't ever done a triathlon before, have you?" I said, "No, I need some help."
Oh, God. Saw you coming a mile away. That's fucking great. All right. Anything else you can add to, just for the average everyday listener out there that wants to get started from both nutrition and fitness standpoint?
I think a lot of it is it's finding what you're currently doing, reinforcing the fact that you make these small lifestyle changes to what you're currently doing, and then like it's a level approach. So like level 1 might be changing one food item out. Level 2 is refining. Level 3 is refining, and you'll learn through the process of how your body responds to carbs and fats and proteins. But I think there's so many fad diets out there right now, where people hop on one fad diet, they don't like it. Hop on the second fad diet, they don't like it, and they're just bouncing all over the place. And it's not sustainable for them.
Yeah, without even really giving it a chance to succeed or fail.
Right.
All right, coming back to just a couple things in the book that I wanted to talk about. You talk a little bit or quite a bit about entitlement, and really how poisonous that is both to our society and to each individual. Why do you suppose it's as bad as it is today? And what is your advice for people to avoid having that type of mentality?
Honestly, I don't know why it's as bad as it is. I don't know if we've rewarded everything, but this is a clear example. It's happened this past week, and this like got under my skin more than many things in the past. So we got this email from this guy who bought $100 worth of supplements from us. He said, I wanted to support your company. I've been following you for a while. I bought these supplements, but I'm disappointed because I wasn't giving anything for free inside. He said he spent $100. He expected a free supplement inside. We responded professionally, but I'm thinking, like, what makes you think that, like, as a business owner, I can take the loss of giving everyone something for free all the time?
Yeah.
And it's like, what makes you entitled to having things for free or having things come easy?
Yeah.
And I think it is a poison where like people expect certain things. Like someone graduates college, they expect a 6-figure job. They expect the dream life. Like they expect it to come right away based off zero experience in that specific field. Like we'll put out feelers for new jobs and we'll have people apply that have no experience, no knowledge, no anything in that field they're applying for, but they think they deserve that paycheck.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way. Like anyone I know that's reached levels of success has worked years and years and years of compounding to get there.
Yeah.
I think other people see where they're at and they think, well, I can have it too. It's that easy.
Yeah. How do you approach, I guess telling people how to avoid settling into that mindset?
I mean, I think a lot of it is, we talk about the process. And we talk about, people say enjoy the process. And it's so much easier said than done. Like someone wants to start a business or someone wants to train for some sort of event. It's like, hey, just enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Well, you start the process fucking sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think instead of trying to enjoy it, you got to respect it. Like respect every part of what it is. Like if you're starting a business, it's going to be brutal. Like don't expect to take a paycheck for years. Expect to ruin some relationships. Expect to be alone for a lot of the time. Or if you're training for something very, very hard, like respect all the suck that you're about to go through.
Yeah.
But I think so many people want the process to be fun because we're told it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And there's no respect involved.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir on that. I mean, I have an online dog training subscription thing I've been doing for almost 4 years now, which is hard to believe. Teamdog.pet. But, similarly is that, because it's a fucking relationship, right? Is that, it's one of the things I tell people all the time is enjoy the journey, and it is a journey. Like, enjoy it, learn from it, but take some time to value it because that dog is going to be gone sooner than later. But even me knowing that, and even people, hearing that over and over, sometimes it's still hard. Sometimes they'll still frustrate the shit out of you. And sometimes people still, I think, have pretty unrealistic expectations as it relates to the process and how fast it's supposed to work and things of that nature. Dog training is very similar to people training in a lot of ways. But at any rate, two other concepts in the book that I really liked were the giving all, or going all in rather, and winning the day back. If you could kind of briefly talk about both of those.
Yeah, going all in. I think this concept it's one that was reinforced with me in Ranger School. After I failed that first phase, it was kind of, it hit my ego. All right, I got to wait 6 weeks to do this. Do it again. Got to mountain phase, failed that. And that was a point where I was like, fuck, when am I leaving this place? And it was like this like physical and mental, like going all in mentality where I was like, I'm not leaving here until I get this tab. And like, there were no distractions of the outside world. There's nothing else you're focused on. And that was the cool part about a lot of military schools is every other part of your life doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
At that time, it's just there's one thing you're focused on, and there's very few places in the world where that exists.
Yeah.
That kind of environment. And I saw the success of going all in there, and I applied that to all other things in my life. If I am going to grow this business, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to eliminate all these other distractions. Nothing else matters for the time being. If I'm going to train for this marathon, nothing else matters. Like all the distractions are getting eliminated. I'm going all in on this. Because when you see the success from it once, you can replicate that process to a lot of different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, one way I like to look at it is cutting out the safety net. Is that if you kind of remove the plan Bs, it kind of forces you to do that, and that's one of the things I see a lot of people fail at, or the reasons why they fail what they're trying to accomplish is because they give themselves a way out, and I think as much as going all in is a good way to help facilitate that is to remove the ability to do anything but that. In terms of winning the day back, if you could kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so this is something I've experienced for the longest time where as soon as I started building this business and we'd have maybe a successful day, maybe we'd hit like a record day, it'd be quickly followed by that next morning where like nothing that happened previously mattered. I used to wake up, I still do, but I wake up angry because I'm not where I want to be. Like you wake up and it's like, well, damn, like even though things are going well, we're growing, we're scaling, we're building this thing. And from the outside, everyone's like, oh, you're killing it, you're doing well. But internally, it's this fire like, no, I'm not even close to where I want to be.
Yeah.
And it fucking like it gets under your skin. And I had a day like this yesterday where I just felt like I was so far from where I wanted to be, where I have to win back each day. And I think so many people like they go through the day where it's like it's just they're just living life. They're just going with the flow. And I go with the flow, but like you have to at some point like you gotta start winning these ones back. You can't let it get away.
Yeah.
It's like I'll wake up angry, and instantly the first thing I want to do is win this day back, and winning that day back by maybe I'm finding a solution to a problem we're currently having, or I'm implementing new systems that move us forward, or I'm developing the team to be stronger and smarter. But it's like each day, how do you win these days back? Which if you win one day back, doesn't matter, it doesn't do anything. But when you win 1,000 days back, that shit compounds.
Yeah.
And you've gone light years ahead of where you thought you would ever be.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about waking up yesterday and being pissed that you're not where you're at. I find myself doing that same thing similarly on a pretty regular basis, where when I think back to where I started and to where I'm at now, I'm like, holy fuck, when I first started, I'd have given anything to be where I am now.
Right.
But now that I'm here, it's like it's nowhere near where I want to be. One thing I am curious, because I struggle with this too, is there does come a point where you're doing too much for too long and not balancing shit out, whether it's taking a vacation or whatever it is. Do you find yourself struggling with that? When to say, okay, look, I've got to fucking, invest some time into myself, not even from a nutrition or fitness standpoint, but just from giving yourself a bandwidth break from focusing on business? Or are you still in that I'm fucking balls to the wall, 100 miles an hour nonstop.
No, I mean, I think I'm at that point right now.
Yeah.
Where I know I need a reset, like a recenter or something.
Yeah.
I have a wedding coming up, so that's probably going to be like that honeymoon. But
you know where you're going yet for your honeymoon?
Riviera Maya.
Oh, nice.
But I think I'll go really, really hard for really long. But when I start to get creatively burnt out a little bit,
yeah,
that's when I know I need a little break. Running actually like really helps.
Yeah.
With that I don't want to say burnout, but like those creative blocks.
Yeah.
Where I'll go do a long run where it's low impact. I'm not breathing really heavy, but I can just focus on one thing, and a lot of my creative like juices come from running.
Yeah. Have you had any joint problems, lower body joint problems from the amount of miles you put in?
No. I mean, I used to get shin splints when I used to run in the Army. But since like adding more volume in, I luckily the last year I've been injury free.
Yeah, that's fucking good. How old are you?
About to turn 30 this summer.
Yeah. Well, give it another decade.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, I can tell you, as somebody in their 40s, it's fucking, it doesn't get any easier. But I will say that what you're doing now in terms of taking care of yourself for sure pays dividends. I know it's like with a car. I mean, if you maintain it from the get-go, it's gonna last a while. If you beat the shit out of it, it gets to a point where even if you start taking care of it now, like it's kind of almost too late. And I think while the body is still pretty fucking resilient by comparison to a piece of machinery, it's still, it has its limits. It can only take so much abuse before there's just not a whole lot you can do. And I've turned into the guy that I used to like roll my eyes at, when I was in my fucking early to mid 20s, beating the shit out of myself. And they're like, you're not going to be able to do that when you're my age. And if you start now and take better care of yourself, it would serve you well. But like with most people, I didn't fucking listen. But anyway.
That's like with when I was strictly doing powerlifting, strength training.
Yeah,
there was always something that was hurting.
Yeah,
my elbow, my knee, my back. But now that I've done more of a balanced style of training, nothing hurts.
Yeah, no, that's good shit. So what now?
Well, now I'm still trying to qualify for this Boston Marathon. So the first race of the season was February 16th. I shaved off 15 minutes of my marathon time, so I ran a 3:24.
That's good.
My next marathon is Eugene, Oregon, end of April. And I'm going to shoot for like a 3:10, 3:12, and then shoot for the qualifier, the sub 3, the marathon after that.
So, I mean, it sounds like the goal is just to qualify, not so much to do well at Boston, right? It's just
the goal is to qualify.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to run Boston, but one of the big reasons I wanted to do this for myself internally too, but to show people like, man, you can do literally whatever you want to do. Like if you just like build this plan, establish the schedule, and like go all in.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go from a 4:15 marathon to a sub 3.
Yeah.
And
is that what your first one was?
My Austin Marathon in 2019 was 4:15.
That's fucking great. I mean, it's still not a bad time, but
no, but this last one's 3:24.
Yeah.
But the amount of people saying you will not do this, you will never do this. When I cross that finish line sub 3, just gonna be
flipping everybody
double middle fingers up. Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking great. A phenomenal story. I love. I really like your book. I think it's a very good representation of a lot of different lessons learned in the military and a good childhood from the sounds of it. That all kind of contribute to funneling your personality and drive into what it has made and you've become because of it. And for anybody out there listening, it's very succinct. It's an easy read and a good read, and you'll pull a lot from it. What I like is how simple it is, and not in a elementary or lack of content way. And that so many books I think that are similar to that in terms of, I'm not going to use the word self-help, but just kind of in the motivational space are way over fucking complicated and just like kind of the same mentality. It seems like you have a mentality that seems to ring pretty true in everything that you do, and that start small, and it's the baby steps, which is something I talk about and I mention in dog training fucking constantly, is starting one foot in front of the other. But I love the simplicity that you have in the book and in kind of your philosophy on life and business and how you approach things. It's refreshing, it's easy to follow, And I think it's a valuable reminder to us all, myself included, on how to do things. So I appreciate you sharing the book. I appreciate you spending the time. And I think you got a great story and a really good thing going on. I wish you the best for the Boston. I hope you crush it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Where can people find you and the company to try some of these supplements?
Yeah, so Instagram, it's Nick Bare, Bare Fitness. If you go on YouTube, you search Nick Bare. You'll probably see me shirtless running somewhere.
Yeah.
And the company is www.bareperformancenutrition.com.
All right, good shit. We'll have links to all this stuff on the YouTube channel as well as in the show notes for the audio version of the podcast. But at any rate, I joke about the 9 people listening. One thing I want to take a quick second is just to thank you guys, the listeners. I'm continually blown away by the level of support that you guys show for this Mic Drop podcast that we have grown over the last couple of years, and I really can't thank your guys' support enough. Without you, this show would not fucking exist. We wouldn't have sponsors. We wouldn't have guys like Nick coming up to share their story. So thanks for continuing to tune in week after week, show after show. And as we wrap up here, I want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors again, Origin Labs, which is the maker of Jocko's products, Jocko Fueled, Go, Discipline, Krill Oil, joint formulas, you name it. They also do boots, pants, which I'm wearing, gis. Just a great company that's been with us from the start. They've shown us a tremendous amount of support, and I use and love their products very much. I can't recommend them enough. As well as Bub's Naturals, which again, 10% of all of Bub's Naturals named after Glenn Doherty, a good friend of mine that was killed in Benghazi. 10% of all of their product sales go to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, helping veterans achieve recreation all over the place. So check out both companies, both great supporters of the podcast, both great products. And again, we appreciate their support very much. Again, Nick, thanks for coming. I know while Austin is not super far away, it's not 20 minutes away, so I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to share your story with us.
No, thank you.
To the listener again, just for good measure, go choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.